Anywho, I believe, Mike, were you up next?
Yes.
Bake it away, toys.
Okie dokie. All right, so here we are back again with the, wait, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Back again with the Model Viewer Studio. I'm going to show some of my progress on that. So again, what we're talking about here is there's this magical web component called Model Viewer. It's by the folks at Google. And what it allows you to do is you give it a 3D model that's like a GLTF or GLB, and it will render it to the screen in this virtual reality window here. Pretty cool. Now, what a lot of people want to use these models for is to do hotspotting. And that's what we're doing a bones project where you can click around the different portions of a scanned 3D bone, and you can select the different hotspotted labels on them to get more information about that specific section of the bone. If you go to the example on the Model Viewer website, it will give you an example of how you can add the hotspots, which are actually called annotations. Now, there's a caveat to that, and that is that they're not easy to add. So the onus is on you to figure out exactly where in 3D space in this virtual reality model you want this annotation to go. As long as you know that, you can plug it into what's known as the data position attribute, and you will get this little annotation somewhere on your model. So we obviously need to make that easier for people to add hotspots to these models. So that is what we've been working on. It's called Model Viewer Studio, and it's made up of two pieces. So this is actually a monorepo that I'm clicking in, and the two pieces are MV Studio app, which is the web component, and then a backend. And this backend is just a tiny web server that's listening for calls from the MV Studio app to save changes to this model. So it's assuming that your model is going to be basically an HTML file right now. So how do we use this? So what I did was I copied this example from the Model Viewer website, this astronaut, and I plugged it into an HTML file. And right now it's really tiny. So I'm going to put height of 100 VH and I think a width of 100%. All right. So here we go. That is exactly what is on the Model Viewer Studio, or the Model Viewer website. Now, how will this MV Studio app help us here? Well, what we can do is we can just add a script to import our web component. So I'm going to import, is it just MV Studio app.js? And I'm going to wrap the MV Studio app tag around my model viewer tag. All right, so this is just going to wrap around the existing model viewer tag. And now that we've done that, we have a slightly augmented user experience. So it's taking the model viewer and putting it into more of an app-like experience where the hotspots are now listed on the left where we can toggle them on and off. And right now it's just listing the ones that have annotations. So that's why only one is showing up here. Okay, so that is cool, but we need to make it a little bit cooler. So I'm also going to import a CSS file. It's just going to add a little bit more. There we go. So it's going to add some CSS that will hide the hotspot if this thing is not toggled on and off. All right. So what if we want to start editing these annotations? Well, we can click the edit button here, and I can click on a hotspot. Oh, let's delete that one. Let's try to edit this hotspot here. So if I click on a hotspot in edit mode, you can see that it's telling me what the unique ID is, what position it has on the model, and it allows me to fill out an annotation. So we can say helmet. And it doesn't look like this model is allowing me to do that for some reason. Oh, I know why. The attributes are different. Okay, so let's jump over to this other example because I already have this one done. So this example should be something very similar. So it's structured almost identically to the other one. It's a model of this flight helmet, and it has annotations just like the other one did. We're doing the same thing where we're importing our web component and we're importing that CSS, and we're getting that exact same Model Viewer Studio experience. So here we can click edit, and we can, let's say that we want to add a hotspot for right here. So I'm gonna, while I'm in edit mode, click somewhere on the model, and for annotation, I'm gonna say hose, and click save. So you can see here that we now have a new, inside of the HTML file, we have a new button with an annotation for hose. It recorded, it has a unique ID, it recorded the exact position. And the way that it's doing that is, first of all, it's utilizing, again, that web component, the MV Studio app web component. And the MV Studio app web component is assuming that there is a little web server running in the background. And the web server is this MV Studio CLI. So this is sort of like we were talking about last week, which the combination of a web component that can talk to a backend. Last week's case was an R web component that could process R code in the background and come back with the answer. This is similar, where the web component is collecting all of the data for where the annotations are in the DOM, and it's sending them to a little microservice backend, and it's saving those changes. So as long as that's running, we can add some more hotspots here. Let's say that we want to add a hotspot right there for the logo. Do that. You can click save. Oh, we've changed the orientation. So there's something called, what's it called? It's called camera target. So camera target is where you want the camera to start viewing in relation to this object. So right now the camera target is the top of the helmet. So if we want to change that to maybe, let's say, the bottom of the helmet, I'm going to click edit, and you can see this is where our camera target is right now. And I'm going to hold shift. Oops, was it shift click? Yes, shift click. So I want it to start down here. And maybe we'll add a hotspot there for the label. Hit save, and now not only is there a new label here, we've changed the orientation of the model. And again, this is all being tracked in an HTML file. So it's, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, so in the future, still working on it, but in the future, you'll be able to run npx, I think it's just npx MV Studio, and then point it at a file that contains a model that you want to edit, something like that. And it will, popped it up over here. It will, right now it's not working, but it will handle injecting the MV Studio app tag around your current model that's in that file, and start the MV Studio server running so that you can actually save changes that you're making in the browser. And that is all I have to show this week, but it's getting a little bit better.
That's cool.
We're getting there.
Have you guys thought of making this like a desktop app or something? Like even just a super small one that just invokes those commands into Electron or something?
Yeah, I started doing that, and then I ran into a few issues with packaging them up, so I abandoned it. But yeah, that'd be the idea. So you could either run an npm command, or you could download the desktop app.
Is there any way to make the models transformable? Like, let's say, like you remove an earpiece or the goggles or something like that.
Oh, okay. No, right now it's just to manage the annotations, but yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. With the go ahead.
As you get there, I might be interested in trying to tinker with you on that, because there's a couple of uses in the library where we have wanted to use 3D models to represent some old materials, like pre-book old materials.
Okay.
That we want them to be able to be transformable, but because that's the requirement for being able to read it. But yeah, we had an really old plugin thing before WebGL even existed, that used a Unity plugin for a while, but then yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something that sat around and it wants a solution someday.
In terms of like playing around with the model, do you mean just straight up hiding pieces, or do you mean like pulling them apart or manipulating them in other ways, like triggering animations?
Yeah, triggering an animation would be great. The particular project that I was referring to is for movable books. Basically, it's think of like a 9-panel brochure,
Mm-hmm.
where like you can unfold it, and then you can unfold the top to open up upwards, and the bottom part folds downwards.
Gotcha.
And then you can fold and move all the different pieces independently.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's definitely doable. One of the benefits of the new GLTF and GLB formats is that you can package even the animations up in those files. So I could list out all of the animations that are listed in that file, and then it's pretty easy to trigger those. So that's a good idea.
Is it possible to connect multiple models together in Model Viewer? So like, let's say you had, I don't know, like the human body, and you can kind of like expand or like view specific parts, like the skull versus like the femur, but like look at the femur in detail, or like the hand, I would say is probably a better example,
Mm-hmm.
and the skull. So like the hand will have its own individual hotspots and points. But I don't know, if you zoom out or go to the default like full view, and then you can click on the skull and then look at like the specific hotspots. So is that like possible, or is it kind of just like a one model, one file kind of? deal for now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Eventually, the app that we're working on for the anatomy will behave just as you described. But I wasn't sure what the scope of this one tag should be. So that might be another tag that sits even higher up that implements MV Studio app. That incorporate that's like an entire application basically. Like you're navigating many different models and maybe you're putting different models together. So yeah, that's still something I'm considering.
I don't know if it's like along the same lines or not, but like, are you able to like load? So does model viewer only relate to one file? Like, does it only load and read the one? I forget what the file extension you said is, but is
GLB
it
or GLTF. Yep.
yeah? So is it
Yeah.
possible to make that? So like, let's say you had like a micro a marine biology like class, with like the one model viewer tag. Would it be possible for me to do like a shark and like a minnow, or like something like that? Or is that kind of like what you described, doing kind of a MV Studio and kind of a more hierarchical tag doing multiple things? Because
Yeah,
this is
that
interesting. It looks really cool, and it kind of like takes me back to like kind of middle school, high school, looking at models and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously they weren't as nice as this, and they were using like specific proprietary software.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, the model viewer tag just points to a model.
mhm.
Now you can do different things where you can take a bunch of different models and import those into Blender and then like export a huge model that contains a few different models.
Yeah.
So you could do that, or probably more likely you would build an app that maybe dynamically injects using model viewer tag, like
Mhm.
injecting a bunch of model viewer tags into the same page, and then coordinating different animations with those. So yeah, that's something to consider also.
Yeah, I'm sort of starting to wonder here if like does the model viewer, does it give you like a thumbnail, like a default thumbnail image?
Yeah, you can do that. I think you can like lazy load. Let's see here. So there's a poster that loads first, and then I think you can. Let's see. So this first loads the poster, and then it tests the usage of. So it first checks to make sure that your browser can actually render the model viewer, and then it replaces the poster with that. So something similar where you would have the poster and maybe not trigger the model viewer render until maybe in intersection observer fired. So you're scrolling on the page and the element actually comes into view. Then you can call render on the model viewer studio tag or the model viewer tag.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'm sort of wondering, like, I'm looking at the actual model viewer code in the background there with all like the different spatial locations there. Would it be possible to, if you wanted this to be a pure web app, would it be possible to have like a window or a tab there where you could just, when you added those new points, to just have that text be there? So if somebody wanted to just like copy and paste that text, they could do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We have something similar in Hacks where you can get the contents of the body area as HTML. So that would be very doable.
Yeah, I could see that being particularly useful for like instructors who just want to add like a few more tags to an image or something like that.
Right, right, and don't want to like download an app or run like a server to do it.
Right.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it could be just pure front end. Well, cool. I'll keep you guys updated on the progress.
It's looking good, man.
Thanks.